Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 52nd episode of the Famvestor podcast, our 1-year episode. So this is a special one, and I wanted to make it super practical. And people ask me all the time, like I have 52 podcast episodes, but what do I really need to learn or listen to know how do I achieve financial independence? How do I get my finances in order? And I'm going to give that to you in this episode in 5 practical, life-changing levers that you can pull to achieve that financial independence. Definitely in your 40s, maybe even in your 30s, or if you're really intentional about it, possibly in your 20s. If you're hardcore, I feel like you could definitely do it. We did it on one income essentially in our 20s, so it can be done. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today. Those 5 points really have to do with, okay, one is like education expenses, second is cars, and third is housing. So cars and housing are one of your biggest expenses that you have to deal with. So I'm going to teach you like the best things to do with those levers, and then just savings and spending habits, and just do a little dive into what you need to do to set yourself up for success in the future. But before we get into that, I did want to share a quick update. Today is April 15th. So a lot of people have been asking me about coronavirus and what to do in terms of like income, unemployment, stimulus package. So I just wanted to get a few things clearly out there for those that have been affected and, are stressing out about what they're doing. They just lost their job and all of that. It's very stressful times right now. It's April 15th, so a lot of people actually just started getting their stimulus checks either yesterday or today. So people are excited. They're getting these big checks in the mail, and that's great. It's a lump sum of money, $1,200 per adult, $500 per child. As long as you make a certain adjusted gross income threshold. For a family, it's $150,000 or less. For an individual, it's $75,000 or less. It's the AGI. I think it's like the 9th line item on your tax return. Anyway, so for our family, we'd actually be getting $3,900 when you take our family of 5. So 3 kids, $1,500 plus $1,200 each. So that's $3,900 for our family. Our daughter was born this year, so we wouldn't actually see her $500 till next year. But yeah, it's a large sum of money, which should help alleviate some of the bumps in the road. If you just lost your job, definitely start filing for unemployment. What they did with unemployment is actually really good too, because you'll get your standard unemployment, which is about like 60% of your income. But on top of that, what they're doing right now due to coronavirus is giving $600 a week on top. So that's $2,400 a month. That's a huge bonus. No matter what you made, even if you made $7 an hour, working at McDonald's, you will be getting that extra $600. So that really should be a good boost, and hopefully that, relieves some fear that comes from this shaky times, these, troubling times. So just wanted to clearly lay that out, and hopefully that relieves some of your concern, and, think smart about what you're going to do with this money. We're going to be talking a lot about, being intentional with your finances in this episode. So a lot of this should be a good guideline on what to do with that money if you do not desperately need it, and you can invest it into some of those pockets. So without further ado, let's get to the show.
You're listening to the Famvestor podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
So in today's episode, we're going to be talking a lot about how to buy your freedom. This is a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, especially near and dear to Sonny's heart.
Yes.
He wants to write a book about it. He's that passionate about it.
I plan to, about this very episode. So you are getting a sneak peek about just the gems, the pure, unadulterated content.
Yes. So he has this passion project, and we wanted to share a few tidbits of that today in today's episode to help get you on the right track to financial freedom. So he's going to share five levers that you can pull throughout your life to get yourself all that way closer to financial independence.
Right. And I think the first main lever has to do with like education. Everyone's kind of going towards the college route, which we definitely promote. We like the college route, but there's also definitely a ton of other routes. I'd highly recommend listening to episode 44, where we talk about debt-free college, and we also discuss like trades and things like that in that episode. But definitely a great episode. And it just kind of talks about how to reduce college expense and how to graduate debt-free. So a lot of gold there. But basically, my main tips are, try to commute from home, because the housing expense, and the food expense and all that of living on campus, which is great, you get the whole college lifestyle, but to graduate with 6 figures in debt is not so cool and sets you back so many years.
Right.
So,
and housing is a huge percentage of the expense of college for
right.
a lot of young people.
Right.
So if you can cut that out and continue to live at home and pack your own lunches from home, you're doing yourself a huge favor for
Right.
saving for the future.
Right. So I highly suggest commuting from home. So finding a local school, and maybe that means a cheaper community college, which is a great route to go, especially for the first 2 years. You don't need to be paying that huge private school tuition for those first 2 years, when you can just transfer and you graduate with that 4-year bachelor's degree anyway, or graduate school degree anyway, once you transfer to that higher, more prestigious degreed school. So number 2 is cars. People spend so much money on cars, especially if they're leasing cars, they're buying brand new cars. So my big thing is buy used. Buy used, reliable, efficient, cheap cars. And I'm going to give you exactly the criteria you need to use to buy a best bang for your buck A to B car. And this is what's going to last you the longest time with the least amount of cost investment. So what I recommend is, of course, buying a used car, and that means not through a pre-owned dealer. You can go that route. I'd recommend that route over buying brand new from a dealer. But what I recommend is just buying from a private seller, whether it be through eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. But this is a strict criteria I recommend. I recommend spending around $5,000. And I recommend buying a one-owner vehicle. Someone who's advertising, I'm the single owner, I had it since it was brand new, and someone with maintenance records, because you really know that they have the pride of ownership, that they really took care of this vehicle. I recommend around 60,000 miles. Japanese make, because Japanese, especially Toyota, Honda, are known for their legendary reliability, and I really believe that's true. I recommend around 6 to 10 years old, and a 4-cylinder subcompact car. And a hatchback if you can find it. So why this criteria? Well, I do the 4-cylinder subcompact car because a lot of these cars brand new are $15,000. I'm talking cars like the Toyota Yaris, Honda Fit, Nissan Versa, Scion XA, Mitsubishi Mirage. All of these start out at about $15,000 brand new. They get 40 miles per gallon. They have timing chains, so you don't have to worry about doing a huge maintenance job at 100,000 or 80,000 miles with a timing belt. They're good, reliable cars, very fuel efficient, and they're just cheap. So, $15,000 brand new. When you're 6 years down the line, you start seeing these pop up at $5,000, a third of the price. Just like any other car, you talk 10 years down the line, that car that you bought brand new is worth a third of its price. And these cars are, so simple that they're like maintenance free. And they get like pretty close to the same mileage per gallon that you would with a hybrid vehicle, but you don't have to deal with that electronic system, that battery, especially the older Priuses, the older hybrids, those batteries went after like 100,000, 150,000 miles. And that was a $2,000, $3,000 expense that came up when you had to change that battery. So I love these simple cars, these simple A to B cars. They're smaller, they're fuel efficient, they're very simple to maintain, and they just last. You had a Honda Fit.
Honda Fit, and what
Toyota
we've been
Yaris,
driving it 5
years.
And I think the only thing we did to it was put in a new battery and get new tires.
Yeah. So just standard maintenance, And we bought your car. It was a 2009 Honda Fit. We bought it 5 years ago for $3,000. It had 50,000 miles on it. My car, I think, had 55,000 miles on it. It was a 2009 Toyota Yaris. Also, we bought like 4 years ago. And they've both been dream cars. Right. And we've saved so much money by buying these cheap, used, reliable cars.
Yeah.
So the last point is just, that 60,000 miles. That's a sweet mileage to have because, it's already been broken in, and it still has at least, I would think, 2/3 of its life left. Like our cars, I think, no problem going 180,000 miles, no problem whatsoever without any huge maintenance at all. I think I changed spark plugs in my Toyota Yaris once it hit 100,000 miles, but that's pretty much it. And that was just, a 1-hour job in the driveway. So a lot of this criteria came from my experience as, I flipped cars throughout college. If you want to hear that whole story, it's episode 19 of the podcast, how I flipped 20 cars to, pay for my tuition for my first 2 years of college. And, one of the main things is I realized, the reliability of these used cars when you buy them right are so great. A lot of people want to buy new because they want that reliability. I just want something that's great, that's going to last me, and I don't have to worry about it. I really feel like if you buy these cars right under this criteria, you'll have that same reliability at a third of the cost. Mm-hmm. And, when you buy new, you have to worry about this lease. You can maybe only drive it a certain mileage. You got to get repairs done or maintenance done at the dealer. It's expensive. You got to get premium insurance because it's a brand new car that's being financed. And you're paying all this interest. And, sir, you can go to, credit unions, get 2% interest, but you're still paying interest. And you're paying premium for this brand new vehicle. As opposed to just waiting, 6 years, and you get this pretty reliable newish car, but you're paying a third of the price. Now you're getting the luxury of having that new vehicle, but you're paying that bulk premium for those first 6 years because you're not going to be able to resell it for that price.
Right, and to add to that, if you're buying a brand new car, the minute you drive it off the lot, it is depreciating rapidly from what you initially bought it for. Whereas if you buy a used vehicle under these criteria, your experience has been that you have even been able to buy a car, drive it for a certain amount of years, and resell it for more than what you actually bought it for. So in essence, you're making money off the vehicles that you own rather than losing money over time.
Right. You buy a $30,000 car, 6 years later, you can only sell it for 8, 10, It's crazy the amount of money you lose on these cars. And that's why this is such a huge lever to pull. Buy a cheap, used, reliable car under these criteria. So number 3 is housing, and housing is such a tremendous expense. We talk about it all the time on the podcast. You can listen to episode 5, which is a great one about house hacking. Talk about it on episode 39, which is about Airbnb. And there's so many solutions you can do to get rid of, the most expensive portion of your expenses, which is housing. A lot of people just spend 50% of their paycheck going straight to housing. You see it all the time. You can do things like living at home. You can get a roommate. You can house hack, which means, buying a multifamily property, getting a 2-family living on one side, and having your renter pay the mortgage on the other side. You can Airbnb a portion of your home. So maybe you live in one bedroom. Maybe you have a finished
basement with a separate entrance. That could be a perfect Airbnb.
Right. Or if you're single and you just need a bedroom for yourself, you can rent out the other bedrooms and break even that way, or maybe even make some income. I've even heard of people, someone at my work actually lives in their car, so that they got rid of their housing expense by living in a car, which is pretty drastic, but it just kind of illustrates the enormity of what happens when you get rid of that housing expense. We took the house hacking route, and it made all the difference, especially being on one income.
Right, and I feel like if you can find the savings there, maybe you got to make some sacrifices and do some things that are not quite traditional, but the amount of savings you can gain through doing that can catapult you toward your financial freedom. Whereas, a set housing expense is always going to be there unless you do something that is out of the ordinary.
So a lot of what we've talked about so far has been defensive finances, just how to save as much money as you can and limit your expenses. Now we kind of want to talk a little bit about offensive, how you're going to make this money grow and how you're going to, just catapult yourself to your future. So this is the 4th one, and this is your savings habits and your investing habits, things like automating your investments. So this is key. A lot of people just think, once I have a little more money or once something happens, then I'll start investing. But really, it has to start now. You have to start investing now. If you start working, first find out, does your employer offer a match? A lot of employers, like my employer, offers 5% match. So the first 5% money I put into my 401k, which is my retirement plan, they'll match dollar for dollar. So I put in 5%, which maybe let's just say it's $500 a month. They'll match me that $500. So a full $1,000, which only half of it was my money, is going towards retirement. So definitely meet your match in your 401k. After that, I'd say invest into an IRA, an individual retirement account. And I recommend just going to Vanguard.com and opening up a Roth IRA for most people. Just open up a Roth IRA through Vanguard and target your retirement account, which could be, maybe I'm retiring in 2065. And so just buy that. You usually only need $1,000 to open once. I heard it's actually less now, but $1,000, and just buy that target your retirement account. Once you get $3,000, maybe think about moving into an S&P 500, which is index fund, which is the top 500 companies in the stock market. Things, blue chip stocks like Google and Amazon and Apple and Microsoft. All those companies are in the top 500 in the USA markets. But the key is to do all these things automatically. Put automatically 5% of your income into your 401k. Automatically say $500 a month I want going to my Roth IRA, because the max you can put into an IRA is $6,000 a year. So $500 a month will satisfy that condition. So automatically withdraw, $500 from my PNC bank account and go to Vanguard and put into this fund. Do that automatically, and you will be surprised how quickly your funds have grown. It's really been amazing to see our growth in the last 10 years that we started. Just how much, that exponential curve is truly amazing. So get started as soon as you can. Okay, last and final point, and this goes back again to defensive financing, because I really feel like defense is so much more important than offense. Offense sure is important. It's great to make more money, get a raise, and spend. But if you always just, spend whatever you make, you're never going to save anything. You're never going to go anywhere. You're just spinning your wheels. Mm-hmm. You're just living paycheck to paycheck and just always upgrading your lifestyle. So really, the defensive finances are key. So this last one is spending habits, measuring your expenses, setting a cash budget for yourself. So measuring, tracking your expenses. If you do nothing else from this podcast episode, do this one thing and it will set you up. Just doing this, measuring your expenses, knowing what's coming in and what's going out is so key. Because if you don't know, then you don't know where you're going and you're not going to go anywhere. Once you start measuring, you really find out what is going on with your finances.
And don't brush it off and just say, oh, I know what I'm spending. I know what I spend every month. Because actually you really don't until you write it down and track it. You may think you do, and you'll be shocked to find you don't until you actually write it down and track it very clearly.
And I make it very simple in my spreadsheet. If you go to famvestor.com/spreadsheet, it's very intuitive. It's very simple. Just fill that spreadsheet out. If you are orderly, you can probably fill it out in 2 hours or maybe even an hour. But after that point, you're set. It's very minute adjustments, and you're just tracking net worth, savings rate, things like that. And if you update like a recurring expense, you can just tabulate that. But it's very simple. It's not, you have to track every single expense from here on ever. We make it very simple by just putting in your recurring expenses. So every Netflix subscription, Hulu subscription, phone bill, anything recurring that's going to be the same amount every month, you just put it in there. And then we have something called an out-of-pocket budget, which is also key. Out-of-pocket budget I love because it's simple. You don't have to have an envelope method with 1,000 different envelopes. It's $1 amount that you agree to, say it's $1,000 a month. At the very beginning of the month, take out $1,000 in cash. So that's 10 $100 bills. And just take that out of the bank and then just spend from that for any out-of-pocket expense, filling up gas at the gas station, buying groceries, any variable expense that changes from month to month, use from that $1,000. And I think you'll be amazed. And it doesn't have to be $1,000. Maybe you want to spend more and you say a budget of $3,000. Just set something and you will be amazed at how quickly that money will disappear. I'm sure you will be shocked. And you will be amazed at how your spending habits just instantly transform when you see these $100 bills just disappearing, and you're just like, where did that go? And you don't even remember how that much money could possibly be gone already in the 5th day of the month.
Right. Yeah, another cool thing when you're spending cash and you have a set budget, it's an automatic halt to your decision making. It's a stop gate where when you come to buy something, you're not automatically mindlessly going, oh, I want that, I'm going to buy it spontaneously.
Credit card. How did I get a $5,000 bill this month?
Right. All of a sudden, you have a limited amount in your pocket. You have a limited amount you're spending for the month, and you're going to ask yourself, do I really need this? And really think hard about it more than perhaps you would if you were not charting your money at all.
Right. So really think about these 5 points, because really they are the gateway to your financial freedom. Do these things and you will achieve financial independence well beyond any of your peers. And they are hard things. They're simple but very hard. They take a lot of discipline. But if your end goal truly is freedom above all else, buy your freedom by doing these 5 things. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it makes a big impact, and thank you for joining us on our 1-year anniversary episode, our 52nd episode, and thank you for being a loyal FamVestor listener. Good luck, guys. Godspeed.
Take care.